My wife of 15 years burned our life to the ground for cheap thrills. But while she is calling me from a psychiatric ward to beg for a second chance, I am holding my newborn child with the woman who actually loves me. Here is the full story of how I lost everything and gained something better. I dedicated half my existence to this woman. Approaching my 40th birthday, the thought of her betraying our vows never crossed my mind. I loved her deeply, even though our marriage had its flaws. We had acquaintances who had dealt with infidelity, and she always swore she could never imagine being intimate with anyone other than me. 1 week after we celebrated nearly a decade of marriage, she took a trip to visit her family. In hindsight, the red flags were waving right in my face, but I was blinded by my trust in her. She displayed classic symptoms of instability, having not held a job for years and exhibiting signs of a personality disorder where she could never admit fault. She often had men and couples messaging her with inappropriate propositions. She would dismiss it, claiming they were annoying her and that she was just trying to be polite, ignoring the sexual undertones. I should have been more vigilant, but you like to believe you truly understand a person after 15 years together. She used to call me daily, but the day before she rang to end our marriage, she went silent for a long stretch. I knew something was wrong. When she finally dialed my number, the conversation was filled with manipulation. She demanded I vacate our home immediately and rewrote our history, claiming she never wanted children despite planning for them for a decade. The hostility escalated over the following days, involving police intervention, until she finally agreed to meet. It took significant pressure, but I discovered she had been unfaithful. She lied about substance abuse, but I discovered the evidence in her belongings. She was also active in a group chat where I preserved the incriminating videos and messages. It was repulsive. Her behavior was the most erratic I have ever witnessed. I managed to finalize our separation within 24 hours, thanks to the support of my employer and family. The subsequent conflict involved her flaunting her affairs in my face. She treated me like a servant, barking orders and trying to diminish my self-worth. I have suffered from health complications, which she attempted to blame on drugs, but they were actually caused by the extreme stress and trauma she inflicted. She was eventually forced to move back to her parents' house, 5 hours away, but the fallout cost me my apartment and, most painfully, my pet, whom I loved more than my own life. I am currently staying with my parents for a few months to avoid being isolated. I have a solid career and a circle of supportive friends. Everyone tells me I look healthier since escaping her, but it often feels like they are just offering platitudes. I have no idea what happened to the woman I married. She never shed a single tear. At one point, I thought we had a breakthrough, but after a short drive, she returned as cold as ice. I later discovered she wanted me out of the house specifically so she could host the repulsive people she cheated with. I am not dating yet. It feels premature, almost like infidelity on my part. However, I am attempting to build a new routine. I joined a fitness center and I make sure to leave the house daily, even just for a walk. I have blocked her on every platform because seeing her name causes my blood pressure to spike. I wish I could release this anger, but I cannot because she shows zero remorse. I just needed to express this. The one person I believed would be by my side forever treated me worse than anyone I have ever known. She continues to pretend everything is normal, wanting to remain friends, but that is impossible after her actions. I wish I could send a letter detailing my pain, but it would be ignored. Today, I am disposing of my wedding band. Keeping it means holding on to a fantasy that will never materialize. My marriage was a fabrication. How do you stop caring about someone who has been part of your life for so long? I have been improving. I have put on some muscle, hitting the gym 3 times a week, and stumbled into some financial luck. I am trying to socialize, but meeting new people is difficult at my age. Meanwhile, my ex-wife is obsessed with having the final say. I received a legal letter, a cease and desist that did not require a signature and had no response date. It was essentially a document protecting her fragile ego, demanding I stop telling people the truth about her actions. It was filled with falsehoods. The most amusing part was the sheer number of grammatical mistakes. The lawyer is legitimate, but from what I can gather, he barely works and likely sent this just to make a quick buck. I did not bother to respond. She wanted a reaction, and I refused to give her the satisfaction. Days later, she started harassing the friend who adopted my pet. She does not know this friend, but made it clear she was concerned about the animal's welfare. She never cared about that pet. She wanted it gone the day she ended things. It feels like a vindictive power move to prove she can do whatever she wants, or perhaps she is pretending to have a heart. Thankfully, my friends will never engage with her. I hope this saga ends soon. I am fairly certain she suffers from borderline personality disorder. She is heavily medicated, consumes various substances, and stays awake all night chatting with unemployed strangers. I want to move forward, but she is consumed by her self-image to the point where she wastes money on budget lawyers to silence me. I know she is unwell, but I hope reality hits her hard. This might be a pointless vent. Looking back, I cannot believe the ridiculous demands she made after the split. Mere days after the breakup, when she realized her funds were drying up, she asked to borrow my car for the weekend to run errands. This was after kicking me out of my own home, costing me the pet I loved like a child, bragging about her affairs, and having her friends threaten me. She would also demand I perform manual labor, moving boxes or dishes to specific spots as a control tactic. She never asked politely. She would point and command. It is something to look back on and laugh at now. It makes me realize who people truly are when they do not get their way. Despite my efforts at no contact, mutual friends who love gossip inform me that my ex is in a new relationship. I did not need or want to hear that. Even though I am relieved to be away from that toxic liar, it felt like a physical blow. Her claiming she left to work on her mental health was clearly the final deception. This is going to be a difficult week. It has been 4 months since my estranged wife went scorched earth on our existence. Cheating, abuse, threatening letters. I struggled immensely, focusing on positive vibes but still suffering panic attacks when alone, especially at night. I posted months ago asking if dating was premature. Thanks for the encouragement. I took the leap, and I am genuinely happy. I will not overshare, but we are deeply connected. We align on our future goals, and the intimacy is physically and emotionally superior to anything I have experienced before. We talk for hours. Some might say it is the rebound effect, but we connect so well that we have no desire to see anyone else. It does get better. The end of one chapter just means you can start a better one. I still think of my ex, but without the emotional tether. I just feel pity that I wasted so much time and sadness for her new partner who has no idea what is coming. But that is not my problem. I am looking forward to ending this year with my new girlfriend, finally feeling a sense of purpose. Almost a year later, I had my first child, and my ex is in a psychiatric facility. I did not think my story was memorable, but I wanted to offer hope. In August of 2020, my wife of 15 years abandoned me. She had been chatting with men and women, engaging in acts I discovered via her chat logs. She lied about wanting a family, then accused me of using her for breeding. She evicted me, forced me to surrender my pet, and tried to ruin me, going as far as sending a legal threat that was barely literate, forbidding me from defending myself in private. I cut all contact after September 1st. She was abusive in every sense, and I was lost. I felt like my life was just a waiting room for death. I even considered accelerating the process. In late October, I started seeing a woman. Opinion was split on whether it was too soon, but I took the risk. I am glad I did. It has been a wild ride, but we are still together, and shortly after my divorce was official, I welcomed my first child. My life has transformed in ways I deemed impossible a year ago. Earlier this year, my ex-wife called me from a blocked number. She informed me she was in a mental health facility after an attempt on her own life, diagnosed with bipolar disorder and BPD. I had warned her family about this during the breakup, but they mocked me. She launched into a sob story, then proceeded to list the people she had slept with. I believe she was confessing in hopes of a fresh start because she asked about reconciliation. I told her immediately that I was in a relationship and we were expecting a baby. It crushed her, but she even suggested she could co-parent with us. I shut that down instantly. Since then, we have kept contact to the bare minimum required for divorce logistics. I have zero desire to return to her, even if I were single. My life is infinitely better without her, and she realizes that now. It eats her up inside, and as petty as it sounds, I am glad. She had no remorse for the family she shattered. I have none for her regrets. I know the feeling of the immediate aftermath. I know the void, but it can improve. I never believed it, but every morning I wake up to my beautiful child and her amazing mother. Do not give up. Let's see how the community reacts with some comments and details from the original poster. User Underappreciated 54 says, I followed your story from the start. Good for you. Your ex is non-functional and has a warehouse of baggage. Now she knows the cost of her actions. She is alone with visions of you and your new family. Her family trash-talking you didn't buy her a great future. Now they can remind her that she threw you away. My response, thanks, I am glad you remembered. I won't lie, before she called from the hospital, I always wished I could see her face when she heard I was happy and expecting. Telling her that while she was institutionalized felt validating. I never wished her harm, but I deserved to tell her she didn't destroy my life, only the one we shared. Ironically, her mother called me right after that conversation. She told me my ex was doing better and that my call helped, then accused me of cheating because the pregnancy timing didn't make sense to her. When my child was born, she called to congratulate me. This woman enabled my ex's behavior and doesn't care about me. She just wants to feel like a good person. I sent her a voicemail. Another comment from Spinucula asks, congrats, just one question. You were with her a long time. When did you notice red flags for BPD? Did it start early? My response, maybe 5 years before the end. She was seeing a doctor for childhood trauma, but I knew it was more. Her behavior was too random. I started recognizing manic episodes. The last year she was barely present, taking out loans, losing friends, and making threats of self-harm. She was abusing prescriptions. I wanted to buy a sports car, and she said our SUV made her look old. I mentioned it to her doctor, but they couldn't act unless she asked for help. She never admitted she was wrong. She blamed trauma. The most heartbreaking moment was telling her during the breakup that she was in a manic episode. When she called from the hospital, she admitted I was right, but the damage was done. She still uses her illness to manipulate people. I wish I could have done more, but it was unavoidable. Final comment from Butter is man. Tequila asks, but where is the pet? Who has the animal? My response, great question. My cat was older, a total darling. I had no choice but to give her up. A family member found a coworker looking for a cat. I was nervous. My baby deserved the best. When the woman arrived, she looked like an angel. My cat was anxious, but they bonded instantly. It is amazing she took an older cat. She sends me pictures constantly and spoils her. The worst part was hearing her cries when I put her in the carrier and scrubbing her fur off my clothes so I wouldn't break down. But I got lucky. She went to the best owner possible, and I gained a new friend.